I'm Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. Okay, time for a blog as it's been in the news a lot lately, especially in areas like the West End downtown. Strata wind-ups, unit assemblies, redevelopment. It's always in the news. There's been a number of fairly high-profile cases recently. I've also brushed on the past about land assemblies as well. So I'm going to do a two-part video here. On this one, I'm going to talk about strata wind-ups, so selling shutting down a strata, terminating it, and selling it to a developer, hopefully at a large profit, of course. Or as well as what's known as unit assemblies, where a developer or a buyer slowly starts buying up a certain percentage of units, generally 80% or more, and then can trigger a vote to wind up the strata. So back in the summer of 2016, to wind up a strata, you used to need a unanimous vote, 100%, which was virtually impossible. You're always going to get some holdouts, and you still do. In 2016, they changed that to 80%. So if you want to dissolve a strata, sell it to a developer, you need at least 80% of the owners on board to vote in favor of it. But even then, even if you get an agreed upon price and you sell the strata and want to wind it up, the final approval has to be done from the Supreme Court. And at the court, they will hear any descendants, any people that do not want to sell. And, you know, in some cases it can be held up. The judge will rule in the favor of the people that are claiming hardship, not enough money. In some cases it's a bank that might own one of the units and has some problems with it. But it's an 80% vote is what's needed. Now, strata windups can be very lucrative for the sellers, and oftentimes they are involved with, you know, older stratas, especially in areas like the West End or maybe in Mount Pleasant. Maybe it's a 60, 70-year-old wood frame sitting on a valuable piece of land. Usually there's a lot of remediation work that is coming due, elevators, roofs, balconies. So the owners are looking at some pretty heavy special levies. And it might make sense, not all the time, but it might make sense in the right environment to maybe just wind up the strata. Let's sell it to a developer, take our money, and go elsewhere. Now, these strata wind-ups, I can tell you, and unit assemblies I'm going to get to, are very complicated here. The other thing I want to just touch on first is you want to hire a commercial realtor for this. So I would say at least 5 or 6 times a year, I will get approached by a group of owners saying, Owen, we're thinking about wanting to sell our strata. We want to tender it out there to developers, and would you be interested in taking this on? And I always thank them for thinking about me, but I politely decline because this is way out of my league. This is very complicated, specialized work. But what I will do is I will refer them to who will be able to take care of them. I will refer you to the best, a commercial realtor. And it all depends on what they're trying to sell. I've got several right now that I've got referred. Some are downtown Vancouver, some are out in the East Vancouver area. If it is let's say it's a West End condo that's got now the zoning and density to build a 30 or 40 story condo, then I am going to refer you to commercial realtor A, let's call it, who has the Rolodex for those type of buyers that are going to be out there. Those type of buyers are going to be the major developers, the Anis, the Bozas, the Cresseys, that kind of thing. If it's maybe a smaller building in East Vancouver, you know, that maybe a 3 or 4 story wood frame condo could be built, or maybe townhomes, then I'm going to recommend you to commercial realtor B, who has a different Rolodex. Those type of buyers for those are going to be a different grade of developers, smaller, mid-level developers that build those type of projects. So it'll depend on what you're trying to sell. More than happy to reach out to me, and I'm more than happy to refer you to the best, a commercial realtor that can handle your sale. But it depends on what you're trying to sell. So, you know, the strata windup needs an 80% vote. Usually it's the strata is got a much larger density, has been approved, like in the West End here, where you're going to go from a 3-story wood frame to maybe a 20 or 30 story concrete tower. Very difficult to do to put these together, and it takes probably an average of about 2 years because it's seldom that you'll ever get 100% vote on it. Generally, if you can get 80, 85, 90%, you're doing pretty good. The next step is to hire legal counsel. You want to hire a legal representative, and then you can shop around for a realtor to represent you. In some cases, these stratas have been approached by a developer. A developer has come to them and said, hey, we will give you X amount for your building. Let's call it 2 times your assessed value. In my opinion, if that's what's happened and you've got an 80% vote, there's a lot of buyers or owners that want to sell. I think that you should still hire legal counsel, hire a good commercial realtor, and put it out into the open market. Maybe that offer that you're getting from this developer might be the best offer, but you don't know that until you expose it to the other developers that are out there because they don't even know it's for sale. It's not. So I think that's your best plan of attack. The other thing I'll just quickly touch on, because I could go on for 2 hours with this. There's so many intricacies. It's a very complicated sale. But a lot of people will ask, well, if I sell it, what can I expect to get? Well, it's all over the road. Much of it depends on the zoning for where you're at. Is it zoned for a 30-story tower, or is it zoned for a 4-story low-rise rental building? That'll be night and day to what the value of it is. The other thing is that generally what you're going to get from the sale, it'll be based on a couple of things. It'll be based on either the interest on destruction or the schedule, the unit entitlement schedule. So in other words, if you've got a penthouse unit with a spectacular view that you've renovated, the same unit 10 floors lower that's unrenovated with the same square footage will generally get the same amount of money you're going to get. That's how it's worked out. The other thing is, once it's dissolved, the strata, if it is approved by a judge and it is sold, any money that's remaining in the CRF will be distributed equally to the owners based again on your unit entitlement. So it is a fairly lengthy sale. Now, the other thing I'll talk about too, that's strata windup, unit assembly. So a unit assembly is where you can get, it doesn't have to be 80%, it can be 10% of the owners, 20, 30% of the owners, where they will get together and approach a realtor that can sell 10 or 20 or 30 units. And they do this in hopes that someone can buy these and eventually obtain enough units in the building to get over that 80% hurdle and then take it to court to see if they can wind up the strata. Now, these are even more complicated. There are a lot of realtors, a lot of commercial realtors that will not get involved in this. The unit assembly one, there was an interesting case, Barclay Terrace, which is over at Thurlow and Barclay here. It was in the news quite a bit a few years ago. It was a 36-unit strata. The 3 developers had slowly, over the course of about 4 or 5 years, bought up most of the units. 34 of the 36 units were owned by a consortium of developers. And they took it to court there was 2 holdouts, and they were offered incredible amounts for their units. As a matter of fact, they were tax assessed at $672 and $793. They were offered between between $2 million and $3.2 million. So roughly 3-4 times their tax assessed value, and they still turned it down. Said it wasn't enough. And couldn't find something in that neighborhood that would be suitable for them. It went to court, and the judge ruled in favor of the developer. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. Now, I know there are a lot of developers that won't get involved in these unit assemblies because can you imagine they build up 80, 90% of the owners are in favor. You've got 10 holdouts. It's a bad look for the big major developers having to go to court here, trying to get the other owners to sell and basically getting them out of their homes. Now, they are getting paid for it, but it's not a good look. So a lot of developers don't want to go that way. Not all. In this particular case, it did go through. They had 34 of the 36 units as a unit assembly. But generally, that's a much harder way to go. The strata wind-up, getting an 80% vote, hiring a realtor, hiring a lawyer, getting an offer on it through a developer, and then again, finally, the final step is to take it to court to get it approved. It can be a real windfall. We're going to see a lot more of these going forward here. They're fairly new, and again, up until 2016, you needed a 100% vote, which was virtually impossible. As a matter of fact, up until 2016, I think there had only been 2 successful strata wind-ups in the Lower Mainland. Correct me, I might be wrong there, but I had read somewhere that it was as rare as hen's teeth. We're going to see more of these moving forward, and that's something that buyers should consider sometimes. I sell a lot of these older West End condos. As a matter of fact, I just had one on Pacific in the West End here that had been approached by a number of developers. It's currently not for sale, but they've had developers kicking tires. I've had a couple of other ones in the West End over the last few years. Same thing. This is something that you should always keep in mind. Out in Richmond, I've had that as well, where they're 40, 50-year-old wood frame condos sitting on valuable pieces of land. Something to think about is what I call that kind of white knight scenario. You buy a unit like this. It's got to be a good strata, though. Some of these stratas are dilapidated and they're a mess. But if it's a well-maintained strata, in some cases I wouldn't count on it right away, but over the next 10 or 15 years, that might be your exit strategy. If it's sitting on a prime piece of land, 15 years from now, your seller on that is probably going to be a developer. They're going to tear that 18-story tower down and build, a 40 or 45-story luxury tower, and you could get 2 or 2.5 or 3 times your assessed value. That's a nice light at the end of the tunnel there, and something to consider when you're buying an older strata. Might not be immediate, but it could be down the road. I just came across, someone sent me an assessment on a condo in Alberni that is sitting on a fairly large piece of land, underutilized. It's only 23 years old. And that strata now is kind of actively looking to maybe try and sell the strata, because you could actually probably build 2 30 or 40-story towers on this lot where there's currently a 23-story tower. So easily double the density. But these land assembly or unit assemblies and strata wind-ups and developers buying these out, they go in cycles. If you go down Alberni Street right now, from Thurlow down to English Bay there, down to the bottom, there's probably 6 or 7 developments that have been approved now for 25 to 45-story towers. They kind of go in these 10-year cycles. There seems to be a lot of them that have been bought now, but the next cycle, maybe in 10 years, these developers will probably be hungry for another set of strata to take out to do some more building with. So they kind of go in cycles, but they are a complicated sale. You want to hire legal counsel, and again, you want to hire, in my opinion, a commercial realtor with an extensive Rolodex. If you're selling something downtown, you want them to be connected with the big builders. If it's something in the east side where it's going to be townhomes or a 3-story wood frame condo, maybe 40 units, that's a different Rolodex there. More than happy to reach out to me, and I will refer you to the best. I'm Owen Bigland. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.